There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Coach Kally B with Coordinated Coaching. And this is my podcast teaching you how to own it. But part of my podcast is coordinating coaches, hence coordinated coaching. And I have none other than the owner and founder of DR3 Fastpitch, Miss Danielle Rubin. This young lady has taken 14 years of experience and she is teaching pitchers how to move before she teaches them how to pitch. I know it's crazy because there's a lot of you out there that want to know how to pitch, but first you got to know how to move. So with that, I want to just give you a little direction because we're going to say this a lot. If you search for her on Facebook and you look for DR3 pitching, wrong page, she can't delete it. You need to look for DR3 fast pitch. But if you're an Instagrammer, like I like Instagram, she puts a lot of content on Instagram, and that is just DR3 Fast Pitch. Super simple. There you will find all of her links. So if you want to, subscribe to her website, you can go there as well. So let's get into this, girl, Miss Danielle. Let's go.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course, I'm excited to have you too. So I know you and I kind of talked about this already, but there are a lot of people that don't know this. And usually our mentors, we like to kind of know, like, when did you know you wanted to play softball? So
when I was younger, my parents put me in a bunch of different sports. We tried basketball, tennis, dance, and nothing really fully clicked for me. I was athletic, I was competitive, but I couldn't find that passion. And then one day we were at the neighborhood park with my cousin, and he's a guy, and he was getting into baseball. And we were about 7, 8 years old, I think 8 years old. And I was just like, you know what, let me take a swing of the bat. And when I hit that ball 3 times harder than him, I knew that was my sport. And I was like, Dad, sign me up for softball. And he was so excited because he was trying to get me into playing softball. And I was just kind of saying, no, I don't think I'd like it. Oh my goodness. So first year of rec ball, I fell in love with it, and I've been playing the sport ever since.
I love it. That is amazing. I don't know about you, but anytime a girl can kind of outwork a boy, that's a big deal because scientifically we are two different things, So I love stories like that.
Oh yeah. And then I was always at that time, I was playing football at recess. I was trying to get into football, and my parents were like, no, you're not playing football. And I was like, I could be the QB, like I have an arm. And so that's just when I figured out I can do all the things I wanted to do in football. I could do it in softball, and compete with girls my age. So I was super excited for that.
And that's kind of where it all started. It sounds like your little competitive nature. I really like that. So with that, you knew you wanted to play softball. The first initiation was you hit harder than your cousin. I want to talk about, like, how did you end up making it to the mound? Because there are 9 positions, right? How did you know that that's where you wanted to go?
So that first season of rec ball is in 8U, and that was coach pitch at the time. And in coach pitch in my area, if you could field and you could throw, you were either playing third, first, or pitcher. And so they put me right on the mound, like right at the beginning. So I was just standing next to the coach, and I'll be honest, I fell little Danielle fell in love with the attention of all eyes on me every single at bat. And that next season, so I only played 8U coach pitch for 1 spring season. And in the fall, I'm like, Dad, I want to be a pitcher. And that's really where it all got started. Is I liked all eyes on me. I liked the pressure of the game a little bit. And I wanted the ball. I was a little ball hog back in the day. And ever since then, I mean, I fell in love with it. So I started pitching lessons right that summer after the spring season. I started getting into lessons, and I was in lessons for 14 years, or I pitched for 14 years throughout my career.
Okay. I like that. So what age were you when you started your lessons? This is important because a lot of parents, they're like, how young can I start them? Kind of thing.
Oh yeah. No, I was 9 years old. I will say, as far as me in the coaching world, I've worked with girls from at 5 years old. I think that's maybe a little too young, if I'm being honest, just for attention span reasons. I think 7, if they really fall in love with softball, 7's a great age. But I also have 2 girls who started at 13 years old, and one has a full ride scholarship to pitch at the D1 level from starting at 13. So I don't think age should really matter as far as if it's too late. If you have the work ethic, the dedication, the discipline, if you want it, then let's go. And I'm all for it, whether you're 9 years old, you're 6 years old, 7 years old, or if you're 13, 14, 15. If you want to put that work in and compete with girls at your age level and skill set, let's go. Let's bring it on.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even when you get to that 14 year of age, you start competing with girls 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you know? So man, if you can come across that kind of grit, that, you know, D1 schools, they want that.
And I really think at the end of the day, if you start later in your career, as long as you have an athletic background of whether, even if it's not like fully softball, I do think softball, you need to be playing that just a little bit earlier, just to kind of get the IQ of the game a little bit before going into 14U, like pitching wise. But if you have those athletic movements at all, like you can move quick, you have rhythmic patterns, I mean, you can really pick it up quickly. So that's a big thing. I mean, I know a girl who pitched at college at my school. She graduated. She was 6, 7 years older than me, so she was ahead of me. But she didn't start pitching till she was 15, and she was the starting pitcher at KSU, throwing 65 plus. And it's just because she was an athlete. And so if you're an athlete, you can move. Let's go for it.
Most definitely. I do find in my area, when people reach out and they're like, well, my daughter's been a gymnast or she's been a dancer and she now wants to go on a softball. I'm like, let's go. Like,
so excited.
I'm like, that, I don't know what it is about being a gymnast and a dancer, even swimmers. I've found working with girls that have swam in the past, like competitively.
That core stability, it's understanding their body, like it's all body weight stuff, so they know how to move rhythmically, fluidly. So any rhythmic sports, yes, exactly.
Yes, very much so. So as far as your adolescent years, you went through middle school, high school. When did you know that you wanted to play college ball? Like, when did you get that itch?
So that transition for me was the 7th to 8th grade year. In 7th grade, I played, or 7th grade and down, I was more on the local, whether it was rec ball or travel ball, but it was very like local team, not as competitive. And I kind of outgrew the competitiveness of the girls on my team. And so that summer going into 8th grade, it was when all the tryouts were going on and for that upcoming fall. And I just went to all the top tryouts in the state of Georgia, and it was all teams. I didn't think, to be honest, I didn't think I stood a chance on any of them. And my parents just said, go out there, be coachable, do your thing, and let's see what our options were. So I went and I tried out for 5 of the top teams. I ended up making all of them, which I was shocked. Now, I was not the best player, but the coaches saw that coachableness in me. They saw that I wanted it. And so I ended up playing with the Georgia Impact. Buster Bass was our coach. And that was my turning point, because I went from the local little travel organization to having Patrick Murphy at my games. Now, he wasn't watching me, but he was watching the girls on my team. I mean, I was 2 8th graders on the team, and then the rest were 9th graders, and they were all getting recruited by top SEC programs. And so that was my turning point of, this is what I want, and I'm going to do whatever the heck it takes to be able to compete with my teammates and to get to that next level.
Can I pause right there and repeat what you just said? I'm going to do whatever it takes to compete. I think that is something that is kind of falling on the back burner, because sometimes we find kids that just will do whatever it takes to get all the cool things. 100%. That doesn't make you a good pitcher, a good athlete. It's whatever it's going to take to compete.
And that requires discipline.
Yes.
A big thing that I think that gets confused sometimes is motivation and discipline. Like, yes, I want a motivated player, but your motivation can change from day to day, because we're human. We might have bad days, especially us females. I mean, we got a lot going on.
Once a month.
Exactly. We can just, those hormones get to us a little bit, so our motivation can kind of teeter. But if we are disciplined, that's the mindset that we have to be able to compete and to be able to do whatever it takes, fight through adversity. I mean, thinking back on that team in 8th grade, I barely pitched. I knew I wasn't going to pitch. I was one of 6 pitchers. 3 of the top pitchers were getting recruited again: Tennessee, UGA, Bama. 2 of them went to 2 of those schools, and I knew what my role was. I knew I wasn't going to be able to throw a lot of innings, but when I did get that chance, I was going to give everything that I had. And what was best for the team was for me to be in left field. So I had a bat on me and I could stay in the lineup, but where are they going to put me? Because I couldn't compete in the infield anymore. I was competing against a girl getting recruited by, again, Patrick Murphy playing that third base. And I'm like, whoa, I don't need that pressure.
Yeah.
And so they transformed me into the outfield, and I fell in love with playing left field, but I only pitched for about less than 20 innings that entire season. And when I hear a lot of girls and they tell me that, like, I'm not getting a lot of mound time, I'm like, well, what are you doing to be a ball player? What are you doing to help your team out? You made that commitment for 1 year. Okay. Even though it's like maybe you signed a contract, you didn't, but that 1 year, what can you do to better yourself and better your team? And that was my role. And I ended up falling in love with it. And it was making me a better overall ball player because I didn't know the outfield. But my coach, Greg Hasty, I'm going to give him a big shout out on here. He really turned my game around. He saw something in me. He saw the fight. He saw the grit. He knew I wanted it. And he did everything he could to help me be the best ball player I could be, even if it was not the role that I was dreaming of. So I'm very thankful for that.
That's huge. You know how a lot of people will say a good coach changes lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally what you just talked about was that coach in your life saw what you had to offer, not only as an athlete, but as a person. He saw you for you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for a split instance, he saw your big picture. I mean, I'm sure he didn't imagine that you would go to this level,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe he did. I don't know. But like, I love being around other coaches that can see past these small things, especially when you are one of two eighth graders on a heavily scouted team, and he still, in some way, some form, put you in that pot. So in a way, you were getting exposed just as much as these other girls were, which that's quality coaching right there. Like that is a true chess game right there.
That was my turning point, and I'm forever thankful for that opportunity. I would not change it for the world. Again, we came in third PGF Nationals that year. Like I wouldn't even thought that was possible. I met Jenny Finch that year on stage. They picked me as one of the players to go introduce her
dang.
and everyone on opening ceremony. And that, like, just going back when I think about my career and kind of where that turning point was, it was that right there. Like I was put into playing with the best of the best. I was not the best of the best, and I never was. I was never the top pitcher on any team, the top player, but my goal was to be that top leader and to bring the team together. And I get emotional thinking about that 1 year, but it really was like I kind of thought at the time, like I was like a nobody, like I'm not going to make any of these teams. And I did. And they saw that one thing special in me, and I just took that and ran with it. And so that's why I commend all these coaches for, we can't give up on these girls. We have to find, I mean, if they have the heart, they have it. We just have to keep pushing them and keep pushing them and motivating them that anything is possible as long as they don't give up. We're going to hit those speed bumps down the road. We're going to go through adversity, but as long as we have that big picture, that goal in mind, and we're striving for that, trying to get 1% better each day, I mean, the sky's the limit.
100%. No, that's something I was just talking about with my girls. Like it's one thing to set a goal, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like, what are you going to do every day to reach that 3-month goal? Like, I still need you guys to also schedule in your downtime. Mm-hmm. Like, if you have a tournament this coming weekend and you guys get done playing at 4, what can you do to protect your peace so you can wrap your mind around the process of what just happened in 48 hours, you know? Mm-hmm. And it blows their mind that anyone would ever introduce like steps that you need to do daily to reach a goal. Because, you know, I feel like there's a huge disconnect, like be a goal digger, blah, blah, blah. But nobody talks about, you know what, you need to wake up 10 minutes before school and you need to go do your drill work. Like, I'm sorry, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, but what are you going to do that's going to set you aside from everybody else? And you answered it right there. You were like, I saw that I was a leader and I wanted to be the top leader. I mean, we could just stop right now. Like, I'm like, this is super powerful because softball, there's so much competitiveness now. Mm-hmm. And I know you see it because you've seen it through your own lens. And now it's like, it's almost like, you know how in travel organizations, they have like a silver, a bronze, like different levels of teams, an A, a B, a C. Like that's literally what's all around us now. Like there's not just one team that an organization will hold up. They'll have other teams like feeder teams, but it's just a huge like weed out process to me. Like,
I'll be honest, for me, I'm so thankful for my parents because I
oh,
had parents who
I want to
did.
interview your dad one day. Like, you always talk about your dad, and I'm like, okay, I need to bring him on to talk to all the parents because my opinion doesn't matter. Like, yes, I'm a travel ball parent, I am a coach mom, but I'm like, I need to bring her dad on.
I'm going to get emotional talking about it because he really is both my parents, who I'm trying to get it together.
Good.
Their support they had in me throughout my entire career. Like I was never that top player. And he never made me feel like I had to be, as long as I gave it my all, mentally and emotionally. Physically was going to come, but as long as I kept my composure, I was being a leader. I mean, I knew that they were so proud of me, and having parents that did not compare me to other pitchers, like that kept my head sane. And I see that a lot. I get messages all the time from parents of like, well, like she's the fourth pitcher and the number one is doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, you're not that. You're not her. Focus on you. Focus on yourself. Like my competition was Kelly Barnhill my entire life. I guarantee most of the listeners know who she is. Grade older than me, but we're both 97s, played on rival high school teams, and then travel ball, always competing against her. If I compared myself to her, like, yes, I wanted to strive like her. Of course, I wanted to throw as hard as she did, but I didn't have her body. I was not Kelly. And I couldn't think that I was Kelly. I had to be Danielle, and what were my strengths? And I knew my strengths were up here. And I knew when I competed against her, not saying this wasn't a strength for her, but I knew physically, I mean, she overpowered me. How can I beat her mentally? How can I beat her emotionally? How can I do little things to outsmart her in this game on the mound? And having a dad and a mom who pushed me in that way, like I'm getting emotional again, but I'm so thankful for that because it kept me going. And that's where I was able to get from, again, never the best on my team ever, even in college. Like I was never that number one pitcher. In high school season, yes, sometimes, but as far as travel ball, like I never wanted to be that number one because I wanted to compete and I wanted someone above me that pushed me. Like, yes, I wanted to be number one, but I was okay with not, because I had something to like keep striving for each time. Getting on the mound, like I'm fighting one pitch approach, going for that. And I just tell parents all the time, like, let's take a step back sometimes and let's think about your daughter. Let's think about her process. Let's think about her strengths. How can we work on those strengths? Because physically, we can't just jump 5-6 miles an hour like this. And so that's just a big thing I want to point out, because if I didn't have their support, like I would not be for sure here where I am today, but even throughout my career, I would not have made it as far as I have without their support on my mental game and helping me and having those conversations day in, day out.
So did they have parents that did the same thing, or did they decide to be game changers because maybe they had the opposite done to them?
They both came. So my mom came from a family of 5 kids. She played softball, yes, here, but I mean, she's not. They're both 2 military parents. I will say they're both from the military. Mom was in the Navy, dad was in the Air Force. And my dad, he grew up. The lifestyle that we live now is not the lifestyle that he had growing up. He's really worked for what he's earned and kind of turned his life around that way. But they do have great parents. They just weren't competitively in sports. They didn't play in college in sports. My dad was a 3-sport athlete in high school, but they just went all in with me and my sister. But that support, I mean, it was a family dynamic. It was not just Danielle loves softball. It was our family loved this. We all strived for like these goals together, which I think was so important, which I'm thankful for. And some parents have big families. They have kids playing all these different sports. So I get it's tough sometimes, and co-parents a big thing of one parent's with this kid, one parent's with that kid. Luckily, they were able to kind of stay together with us. My sister's 5 years apart and she didn't play sports. She was more on the drama, dance, artistic side. So it did work out that way. But yeah, no, they really, again, their support is I'm forever thankful, forever will be. And I think they're both going to end up working for me once he retires. I'm excited.
I love that. I mean, it reminds me a lot of like Sue Inquist, like her story. She comes from a military family too. And the things that she's dropping now and has been for Like, I want to say she was dropping the nuggets while she was coaching at UCLA, but I feel like ever since she retired from coaching, it's kind of allowed her to step onto that platform and really talk about the mental and emotional health of the human being, not just a softball player. And that's where I took a lot of the one, she would always talk about it's one swing at a time, one swing at a time, one swing at a time. And I was like, well, shoot, it's the same, one pitch at a time, one pitch at a time, one pitch at a time. So for me, and I know this is silly because I'm not playing anymore. Like I haven't competitively played in a game. I actually played in a slow pitch game. That's where I met my husband with slow pitch. But the last game I played, I being on blood thinners and stuff, like I always have to be super careful. And I was playing right field and there was a ball hit foul. And I was like, I'm gonna go get it. I have no problem robbing an at bat. Well, I lost it in the lights. And so I just stood there and put my glove right here. And he's all the way up third, playing third base. And he stopped. And I mean, we ended up getting out of the inning and like I was running in and he like came up to me and like stopped me. And he was like, don't ever do that again. And I was like, do what? And he's like, just let it go foul. And I was like, what? And he was like, from my angle, I thought it was going to hit you in the face. And he was like, I was so scared. And in that moment, I knew like, okay, I really, really need to be done. Like, I can't halfway play anymore. Like, I would get made fun of for sprinting to first in slow pitch. You don't sprint in slow pitch, like, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. But it was really dumb. And it was really selfish of me to think that I could put myself in a situation like that, so.
It's hard to take that away from us.
Yeah.
I mean, we devoted our whole life to being competitors, and that people ask me to be on a slow pitch team. And I'm like, I don't think I can mentally handle it because like, I want the fast pace. Two, I don't think I'll be able to take a big step down. Like I just know me and myself, and I commend you for going out and doing that and even taking that step away. I know that was so hard to be able. It's just like I couldn't imagine like taking that competitiveness away from us. It's really tough.
It is. I mean, we're gonna get into this about how we both had to hang up our cleats. Mine was something I was born with. I didn't even know I had a genetic clotting disorder, and it peaked its head in between my sophomore and junior year of college. And thank God I threw a blood clot in my brain, which gave me a headache for 3 months. And that's what led to the diagnosis. But I look back and I'm like, gosh, how dumb was I? Like, literally, I'm on blood thinners. I'm still playing slow pitch. Like, even on the reservation out here, they have men's fast pitch leagues. And I got asked to go pitch. And I was pitching in men's fast pitch. Like, what was I thinking? Like, I thank you, Jesus, for keeping me alive because this wouldn't be happening. Like, I wouldn't be married to my husband. My kids wouldn't be here, So with that, I want to talk about like when you knew that it was time to hang up your cleats and put some turfs on. Like, and I like that transition because we're coaches. We wear turfs now. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain physicalities to the game that we have to do as mental triggers that kind of hold us accountable,
Yeah.
When was it? Like, let's get into it.
So this is something that's kind of not exclusive info, but I don't talk about this a lot on my page because it brings me back just to like negative vibes and negative energy a little bit. But just being honest and vulnerable, in college, so like I've always, again, been a competitor, been the leader, been the most vocal on the team. Like that was just my personality, what I loved. And I just absolutely loved that role. When I transferred from my D1 to my D2 school, I went through a lot of hard mental and emotional transitions. It was very tough to buy into the new program. It was tough to communicate with my coach. I was in her office 7 times in the fall, and my teammates they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm trying to understand things. And they're like, nobody goes in her office that much. And I'm like, what? Like they were scared. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be scared. Like I need to buy in. I want to buy in. I want to be here. I want to play. And skipping through all the rest of it, I mean, it was just tough. And I started to my junior year. So at the end of sophomore year, I hurt myself going into regional play. I was the relief pitcher for the first game, and our role as a relief is we didn't start warming up until the first inning. And that was just kind of like what we did. I start my warm-ups. Well, in the first inning, our starting pitcher, third girl up bat, hits a line drive to her face. She had a face mask on, but she still had a concussion, black eye. I mean, she was out. And I'm like just praying that she's okay. Like I'm just like looking at her, and then I'm getting screamed at of like, Rubin, get ready. And I'm like, I don't even have my cleats on yet. Like I was so discombobulated. I didn't warm up because we didn't warm up with the team. Us pitchers had our own warm up. We did our own routine. And I'm like, my heart was racing. Well, I didn't have a choice. And so I throw one pitch off the mound from not doing anything, and I collapse. And like I felt this pain from the top of my shoulder all the way down to my right foot, and I couldn't move. And I was like, and like normally if I'm in pain, I'm still going to push through it. I'm going to pitch, but I couldn't move my body. And like I felt like I got like quickly paralyzed for just like a quick second. And I was like, I'm done. I'm out. And I was in rehab, so I was done. I didn't pitch the rest of the tournament. I was done for the season. That we lost that game and we were kind of done anyways. But that being said, I pushed through it my junior year. I went through all the therapy. I went through everything I need to do in that summer and that fall to prepare for the spring. And it was just that ongoing injury that I wasn't allowed to necessarily heal. And I started to not love the game. And I was like, that's not me. This is not me. This is not Danielle. Why am I not loving this game? Like it was painful for me to think about putting my cleats on after student teaching for 8.5 hours because my back, the pain of what I felt on my feet all day and having to go put my spikes on, having to go warm up and do this, like it was hard. And it got to a point of like, I do not want this game to be taken away from me and that love, but it is. And that's just kind of when I knew it was time for me to take a step away because physically I was done. Like my back, I never let it fully heal, and it was just like such a wake up in tears, go to bed in tears. Like I just could not get anything right, and in rehab every single morning, like it was just really tough. And hung the cleats up. I knew at the end of that last game, like I didn't even tell my coach yet, but on the bus I was crying because I knew that was my last game. And that emotion, I took it, and that's when I started the DR3 pitching blog on my Instagram. I just made it a blog.
Stop. I'm getting emotional over here. I'm like,
I'm trying to hold it together too. It's just kind of like hearing my story. I haven't talked about this in a while. And I just made the blog, and I don't even know what my first post was. I can go back 2,000 posts down and see, but I just knew that I wasn't ready to give it up. So I'm just going to make a blog. And then it kind of turned into me giving lessons my senior year. I ended up having like 2 girls, and then I ended up finishing that senior year with 17 girls I worked with in Middle Georgia. And I just knew my role of a coach was my calling. It wasn't the player. My God told me my playing days were over, but you have the ability to change a game for somebody else going through everything that you went through. So that was kind of my big turning point.
Whew, so many emotions. I think low key like that brought up a lot of stuff for me too. Like, I want to ask you, this is a question we did not talk about, but do you often find yourself imagining if you could have been that pitcher who had the choice to just, I'm done. I'm gonna hang my cleats up, like, and obviously you and I both know we wouldn't be where we're at in life if that were the case. But do you ever just like imagine that, like
if my injuries didn't have to take it away,
like if you were able to finish out
4 years,
all 4 years and just be like, all right, I'm gonna be done. I'm gonna go on to the next chapter of my life. You know,
I do. And I think that's something that I'll forever always kind of think about as much as I'm in this coaching game a lot and talking about this process with other girls. It's like stays in the back of my head of like the what if a little bit. But at the end of the day, I'm so thankful for that journey because I am here where I am. But it was also a blessing because my junior year was 2019. And my parents, they did not want me to quit. They were like, Danielle, your goal was to play 4 years all. And I was like, I know. That was my passion. That was my love. And I'm like, something's wrong here. And that's not okay. And that's not me. And when they finally believed me, because they offered to give me my scholarship money. I'll be honest, my parents were like, you can have your scholarship money, like whatever money you get, you can have it to play your senior year. And I'm like, and when I turned that down, they knew. They were like, oh my gosh, she's turning down all this money, like she just doesn't want it. And it was a blessing. It's not happy that COVID happened, but if I went through that fall and still feeling the way that I did, and then I would have fought for my senior year. March 13th, the world shut down, and I would have gone through all these trials that I knew I couldn't handle. And it was like God telling me, like, again, I hate that all this COVID stuff happened for everybody that year, but it was like for me and my journey, it was a blessing that I ended when I did. So I didn't have to kind of go through that whole journey and then get it all taken away again.
It sounds like it allowed you to kind of process things and kind of start your healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know it affected a lot of my husband's athletes that were playing college ball that year. And we opened our doors to these kids, like in the house that we were at then, the whole garage was a gym basically. And our backyard had pitching mounds and hitting tunnels. And these kids would come over because like everything was closed. And we were like, hey, as long as your parents are good, you guys can come over. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Like it's a judgment-free zone. Like do you, like, but if you want to come. But there were a couple kids that I remember my husband being on the phone with them via speaker and just hearing them just completely break. And
it was horrible. My teammates, I felt bad for, we had one other girl, we were both juniors. So another girl in my class at my college. And this girl, she was one of the best players on our team. Starting shortstop 4 years, and the fact that she could not finish for her senior year, and she had a 4.0 in nursing, like she was getting married in the fall. Like it was just something that, like, I hated it for her. I hated it for all the girls, but I always think back on Amber Coy a little bit just because I'm like, that girl, like she deserved to finish that year out.
yeah.
But it was, another point for that, like for me on my healing. I guess this kind of goes into when I wanted to kind of turn my coaching career around, because during that time, my senior year, again, I was giving lessons here and there, and I was getting my teaching degree. I was getting my bachelor's in science for special ed. And March 13th, the world shuts down. March 16th, my dad he was one of the first people in our county diagnosed with COVID. And at that time, the doctors did not really like know what to do. Like it was just like the big deal of what's going on. He was in the ICU for 30 plus days. My Nana was in the ICU for 30 plus days at the same time frame. So like she went in 2 weeks after. My mom's an ER nurse. We weren't allowed in the hospital. That time frame, like for 2 months, I didn't even think I was going to graduate college on time, because I was so just distraught, because if I lost my father, lost my Nana, who are my people, it was just really tough. And so I told myself, if he makes it home and he's good, like I'm going to really take DR3. Like I feel like that's my answer. That's my calling, that DR3 can go to that next level. Whatever that level is, I'm not going to give up on it. And so that's just, it's just kind of it's an emotional story, but I'm able to process that. And yes, we went through a lot of trials, but it's crazy what God can do. And it's crazy just like what God's plan was for us. And at that time, I could not guess that in 2020, when my dad like came home, that he would end up being my dadager and I'd be doing this full time.
Dadager.
My dadager, that's what I call him.
I love that. That's cool. I like that. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, well, I'm glad he's okay, because I was working in the hospital during that time as an ultrasound tech, and I don't want to go back.
No,
Like
I can't even. It's hard for me to talk and think back on that time, because and for a lot of people, I know they feel that same way. But the amount of days I'm at my parents' house right now, but I'm looking at the kitchen. Mom and I and my sister, we were just on the ground on our knees, like praying for like hours, like to hear an answer, like what's going on, like God, please, like heal him, like don't put him on that ventilator, like just all those things. And it's just crazy to see, like that was only 3 years ago. Like, and then how kind of things have kind of changed and grown
Yeah,
since.
and look at where you're at. Like
Mhm.
the amount of ground that you have gained from leaning into your adversity. And this is another thing that I feel like is a missing component right now in a lot of athleticism and a lot of sports. Let's just simplify it. Let's vote at a school board meeting, equal playing time. Everybody's a winner. You showed up. No, no. We need to go back to not just throwing a kid into adversity, but kind of like your parents did. Hey, kid, this is what you're walking through, but the coolest part ever is we're right here with you. Here we go. You
Mm.
know, and I feel like if more kids could understand what it truly means to lean into their adversity versus why me, poor me, because you get stuck there, you lose time on your life, and here you gain time on your life. Like that just like you said, it's amazing what God does, and it is amazing what God does because when things like that happen, that's where we have that connection with Him, where we can be like, I need you now, like
And
not
it also
make
helps
a
with
wish, like really truly need you like now.
well, with coaches too. Like, I can't stand the everybody plays philosophy. I think I'll firmly forever believe in that. Again, in rec ball maybe, but as far as like in that travel ball world or moving up levels, I mean, that's teaching you life lessons. You're not always going to get what you want in life. And me being like 25 on my own for the last couple of years, I mean, I just see some of my friends, teammates who kind of did have it all in the softball world growing up, and they're still trying to, and it's nothing against them, but it's harder to find your why a little bit when you weren't really able to find that in your game because you were kind of given everything, or you were that top player and you were always praised, which again, that's awesome. But at the same time, going through those adversity points, I mean, like, I'm so thankful because it did make me who I am, and it made me stronger to kind of handle this adult life and take this adult life. Like, yes, I'm going to get knocked down. Yes, there's going to be weeks where financially maybe things aren't the way I want it, but like, I'm not going to give up. And I just see a lot of people my age, whether they played softball or not, it's just in my people that I know of around 24, 25 years old, it's it's tougher sometimes if you didn't go through that as a child. And parents, I think, need to commend those opportunities a little bit more, the adversity. And again, just like kind of exactly what you said. I mean, we have to be disciplined about that, because if you're not disciplined as a child when you're younger going through all that, I mean, how are you going to be that as an adult? And it's our job as coaches to not just teach these girls how to play softball, it's to teach them life lessons post softball, because softball is not going to be there forever. And I tell parents all the time too, like, if you're going to go play, just for instance, the stats of college, I mean, only 7% of high school players play at the next level. That's all divisions, not even D1. And so thinking about like what the percentage of just pitchers or the percent of just D1 players, I mean, it is so small, it's hard. And like pro level, like the pro is like it's tough. And if you know that's not like the end goal right now, our end goal needs to be comparing this to life a little bit more, and life lessons, and lifting them up in those ways, however we can.
No, I 100% agree. Like my husband and I both feel very strongly about baseball and softball is the best sport. And I'm sure other
Yeah.
people will pick their sport, but we feel strongly about it because it is a game of failure. And you will practice the same play 1,000 times with not one guarantee of ever being able to make that play.
Yep.
And then you practice it 1,000 times. And let's say that play happens, you pull it off. And it's because you practice it. So if you apply that to your life, like you said, when you have weeks that don't financially go the way you want them to go, you're still showing up. You're still practicing for that one play that there is no guarantee that's going to take place. But by God, when that play takes place, you have your discipline to fall back on and say, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a huge full circle thing for us. Like my husband and I, like, it's something we love to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I've given you a little background on our kids, like 2 boys and a girl, baseball players, softball players, like they're competitive. And I'm going to definitely recommend that my son who's playing college ball right now listens to this, because I want him to hear your story of the adversity you faced. I feel like anybody needs to hear it, because I understand what it's like to love something so much and then you start questioning, do I though? I don't think I do anymore. And it's when it's that why, we start allowing others to take that why from us. And we've got to protect it. We've got to keep it close to our heart. I used to tell little leaguers, you're going to put it in your back pocket, you know, where you put your seeds, where you're not supposed to be eating on the field. You're going to put your why back there, because you're hiding your seeds. So I want you to hide your why. Don't let an umpire take it. Don't let a coach take it. Don't let a teammate take it. And don't let a parent take it. It's yours to have. So, and you honestly, as long as I've been coaching, I love the theory of the why. But when you started talking about it, I was like, bro, hold up. She's like one of the only other coaches than myself who have talked about the why. And I literally have my pictures. So I give him journals from Always Grind. Joe, I don't know if you met him at the NFCA conference, but I have them. So Ashley B was at the table.
Oh, yes, yes. And
okay.
Those, okay, I know what you're talking about.
So I have those journals for my athletes, like the serious athletes, right? My other athletes get different journals, but they always define their why. And it goes on the front page. And they look at me kind of clueless, but why? Define your why, but why? And I said, because you are going to have more than one day. You are going to come home after a game, or you're going to come after school. I don't know. There's going to be a day where life sucks and you just want to quit. And you are going to read that why, and it is going to fill you back up.
100%.
Look at like favorite Bible verses, right? We spit that favorite Bible verse and all of a sudden we're filled back up. As simple as that, you know? So
no, that's the very first question in my mental training in my online membership is, what is your why? And I was going through, I mean, this was 2-3 months ago, I was going through some of these answers, and about, let's just say, I don't know, half the responses, girls knew what they were talking about. I've worked with them before and we've had those conversations. Well, the other half, these are girls that I haven't met before, or haven't worked with yet. They're like, I don't know. And I just left a whole lot of comments of like, let's think this, let's think this, let's think this, or like think about different ways. But we have to formulate your why. And you're not going to get an answer that says, I don't know. Like, I'm not accepting that. I'm making you think this through, and I will continue asking this question until you find it. But it's not something that just, you can't just say this is my why. Process it, think about it, really truly dig deep on what is that why, and also comparing that why to you as a human, not just you as a pitcher, not just you as a ball player, not just you as an athlete, but let's bring it back to the human. And what do you hope people in 10 years from now, they're not going to think about the strikeout that you threw against the best batter and whatever. They're not going to think that. They're going to think about how you made them feel. They're going to think about your leadership skills, your communication skills, like that. Like, it's really how you make them feel. That's what people are going to truly remember. But we have to put that in with our why a little bit. What do you want people to talk about in the next 10 years? Like, if they had to describe you. And that's kind of where I kind of got my why from a little bit, like thinking back, like I had, again, different whys through different periods of my life of kind of like where I was at. Whys evolved a little bit, but that's what I would kind of keep in the back of my head of when I was thinking about my why, is what impact do I want to leave on the people that I'm involved with? And I think that's huge for everybody to think more in that perspective a little bit, because it really helps you think outside of the box. Not just, again, the ball player, the pitcher, the athlete, but the human. Why?
Yeah. Who, like, that's why I talk about, you know, my podcast, teaching you how to own it. On and off the mound, on and off the bump, in and out of the circle. Like, I don't care. Like, I found out last year at conference that people get mad. Like, they get offended if you don't call it the circle, or if you call it the mound. That's a baseball reference. And I'm like, what? Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, protect your peace, bro. You're on the field. Like, yeah. So I like that. So going through everything, like literally, this has been so organic. This has rolled out like boom, boom. We've been emotional. I love that. I want to just talk about if you feel like there's any hot topics that need to be addressed, that are about to be addressed, like anything maybe in the South that you're dealing with that people think that pitchers need to be doing, and anything. If you don't,
Yeah.
you don't have to talk about it.
No, one thing I wanted to kind of tackle on of what you were talking about with failure. So this is something that Allie McKnight with McKnight Softball, me and her have partnered up working together for the past couple of years, and we had a 3-day camp at the end of January, and she worded this, so I'm giving her full credit, but I've been using it ever since. Big topic she said is when you start the semester off in school, everybody starts with an A. Everybody starts with 100 until you get assessed and your grade fluctuates. Okay. But in the softball world, in the athletic world, when you step foot in the facility, in the bullpen, on the mound, on the field, any training facility, you got to start with an F. And we have to have that F as our starting point because we know we're going to fail. We will fail, whether it's a big failure, small, whatever, but we have to have that mindset that we will fail. And your goal is to get that F to a D, get that D to a C, get that C to a B. And she said there's no A's. I argued with her a little bit. I'm like, they can get A minuses, maybe not A pluses. Just me being a teacher, I'm like, I want the A minus in there, but there's no A pluses because no one's perfect. But if you always have that mentality of we're starting at an F and we're starting at like a 0 and we're trying to build up, you'll be able to work through that failure a little bit more because we already know that that's going to happen. And it's just striving to get that 1% better. That's a big topic I've just kind of been working with my girls, and we've been starting that in lessons again for the past couple of weeks. And I've really seen a turnaround point on their mental game in a bullpen, especially with my little girls. They understand the grade system in school, little like they understand that. And I was like, hey, you're starting with an F. We're not getting an attitude right now. We're not getting upset because what did we start off with? Okay, we already started at the bottom. Now we're just trying to work our way up. And that really, I mean, I just love that analogy that she had. So that's kind of more on the mental game. And then as far as pitching, I mean, are there any specific questions that you'd like me to talk about or just kind of hot topics in general?
I think one we always run into here in Arizona is crow hopping, double planting, just things like that. And we had a girl who, my girls, they've learned enough, like my girls that I help with coaching travel ball with Pono Athletics. They'll like, coach, she's pitching illegal. Like they are now so like they've been taught, right? And I mean, these are like my third baseman, my shortstop, like they'll look at the pitcher and be able to tell. And I'll bring it to my head coach's attention, and then he'll decide whether or not. And usually he does. And the umpires just let it go. And to me, as a pitching coach, like it's like it's gnawing at my heart because now that I know you and we've created this relationship, it breaks my heart because I'm like, gosh, dang it, somebody put the brakes on this little girl, and don't deconstruct her, but construct her to be like, hey, sweetheart, this is what you're doing wrong. Have a conversation with the coach. Like you may, want to talk to the parents, like, because I reached out like through a high five line. I told a coach, hey, you might want to, get your pitcher like some extra support, like her knee's going to be hurting. And he was like 6'3" and bent down and got in my face and was like, you worry about your own effing pitchers. And I mean, they beat us. We ended up losing by like 2 runs, but I'm just like, I'm a pitching coach. Like these are just things that I see. Now I could understand if we would have beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Come at me, bro. Like, but he came at me on that level. And I was like, I am literally leading with love. So now I just don't say anything. My girls are like, coach, like, that's bad. And I was like, figure it out. It's going to come from the hip. Don't worry about what her feet are doing. Hit the ball. Your job is to have a good swing to hit the ball. We will worry about all that later. So do you find that happens a lot out there? Like, depending obviously on different organizations, but like, do you feel like more and more umpires just let it go because she's pitching strikes? Why did we bother? Like, but down the road, she's going to be hurting.
And it's not only hurting. I mean, I see advantages to crow hopping and replanting if you're taught properly and your body's moving properly. But if you're not taught properly, you don't know what you're doing, you are going to hurt yourself. And it is going to just cause a lot of issues. But this is what bothers me. It's less about umpires a lot. Well, no, it's the same topic. If it's in the rule book, and it's in the rule book. We follow the rule book, and I'm a stickler on that because if umpires are going, well, I mean, for us, it makes it very difficult because we know right versus wrong. We know the rule, and we know at the college level, like they're not gonna like let that fly. Like they're gonna get on to you more about that consistently. And I have a video, it's about 10 minutes long on my free course of just my opinion on a crow hop, replant, and a leap. One, defining those rules, because I feel like the leap, and people think leaping is crow hopping now, and I'm like, nope, that's an airborne drag. Like, let's understand whether I don't let my girls leap, but if they are, I'm not super stressed about it compared to the crow hopper replant, because it is legal, even though I do try to correct that because I know they're going to be stronger staying on the ground. But I mean, one, I can't believe that coach attacked you like that. I think it's just so wrong on so many levels, especially getting in your own, my goodness, I don't know what I would have done.
Oh, I was shaking. I was like, and like, there's a lot of female coaches out here that'll be like, I cannot believe you talked to a female like that. Like, bro, come at me, because we're on equal grounds here. But like, this is coming from love. I'm genuinely caring about your pitcher. Like, she pitched a heck of a game. However, I wanted to pull him aside and be like, this is what it looks like in slow-mo. Like, let's have a conversation. No, couldn't even have that.
I think probably knowing that happened to you, if I went through that situation, or if I saw that, if I didn't know the coach and if I could just kind of take a glance and just, I don't know, I would probably go to the umpire and I'd be like, Blue, is there any way? I get that you never called this in the game. I get whatever. I didn't complain about it, but can you let that coach know? And it's coming from a place of love that, hey, I let this slide this game, and I'll be honest, I knew that was happening. Or even if the Blue didn't see it, whatever, like, hey, I'm an instructor. Here are my credentials. Like, here's a video of what she was doing. I get you didn't call it, but for her own sanity, like for her own sake, for her own future, can you please address this so she knows? Like, let her parents know, let somebody know. And I feel like us, like we have the platforms on social media to just talk about that more, and to just aware parents of like, one, what is the rule? Two, like just how can we help that a little bit more? But with umpires, I know there's an umpire shortage. We were talking about that.
Ever since COVID hit, they have changed.
And so there's some people who are umpiring who might have not been umpiring for a long time. And we, one, have to give umpires grace. They're humans too, and they make mistakes. But as long as they, I feel like, can address that mistake afterwards, or like talk more about it, like we're just all here to grow the game together. But I don't hear much about that. I get questions all the time, but it's not really, I haven't really heard like the fights going on or like hot topics like that. It's more the radar gun. I can't stand this radar gun getting pulled out every single week. My PR is this, and the radar is being thrown up at the kids, so it adds like 4 miles an hour. And like I see the videos, and I see random parents radaring other random kids at tournaments, and if I see one parent doing that to one of my girls, I'm going to lose it. And to me, I just don't think that's, one, respectful. Two, it's just like, what's the point? Really, what's the point? Like, radar with your eyes, but I mean, what's the point of getting that number? And that's just the culture that I'd like to change.
Yeah.
I radar my girls 4 times a year. So fall, winter, spring, summer. That's when they can kind of shoot for their PRs. Now I'll pull that out again if I'm trying to see speed differences. Sometimes I'll tell the girls, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll tell the parents and not the girls, or sometimes it's just my information for me as a coach to understand where they're at. And they get asked all the time, can I radar? Can I get radar? And I'm like, no. If you want a radar, then you buy your own. You can do it at home, but I don't suggest you pulling it out every week, because you're not going to PR every week. But that's kind of a big thing I see in the South as far as the competitive side of coaches. Like, they'll be posting on Facebook sites of, hey, I need a bracket ball pitcher throwing 50 plus, I can 10U. And I'm like, really? Like, that's your requirement, is like 50
wow
plus? Exactly. And to me, I'm like, okay, one, I don't know who you are, but I can't stand, like, that's your requirement for a pitcher in 10U right now, as a bracket level, needs to have a fast change drop, throwing 50 plus. I'm like, you're going to get very little people who hit those parameters.
Well,
like,
in their mind, that's how they beat him out, though. And then as a coach, I'm like, I don't even want that, because if you have somebody answer that call, have fun with the parents. Like, the fact that they are allowing their daughter to be consumed by those expectations, I don't even want to deal with people like that.
No, 100%.
There's
That's
a
what
time and a place for radar gun. I like to also use it for I do it consistently with my older girls to make sure, like, if I know consistently they're sitting at 57, 58 miles per hour, and then all of a sudden we're working on fastballs and they're down to 55, 55, 50. Hey, what did you do today in weight class? Oh, it was leg day, coach. Okay. Whew. Because there's a really, I wish I could find it, but I heard it, like, I don't know, I think it was during COVID. There was a podcast episode out. A college coach was talking about how he utilizes pocket radar to look for injuries, to get a heads up. He'll know, all right, if we've got that discrepancy for this amount of time, that kid needs to go get an MRI, kind of thing. And
So
it
I
was
totally agree with that. Doing it
so,
that way for consistency, it's just more of trying to PR every week. Like I'm trying to hit, I was at 56, now I'm trying to get 57, now 58. I'm like, dude, like that mindset, it's killing these girls. I'm like, you're not going to increase speed each week. We just want to be consistent.
We want to be consistent, and I love that. So I know I have to apply that with my own kid. She struggles sometimes because, like, she stayed at like 43 for like, I don't know, 8, 9 months. And then over Christmas break, she grew and hello, 47, 48. Like, and I kept telling her because she kept like, this isn't fun. I don't want to pitch anymore. Like, she wasn't verbalizing it to me, but I could see it in her body language, and she is very loud. Like, that is one thing I have to really work with her on. She's like a cartoon. She's like her mother. So when she started pitching as fast as one of her buddies, it was like, okay, I'm back. And I'm like, sweetheart, you cannot put your goodness on how well you can pitch on a speed. Like, no.
Well, that's a big point too, is talking about the puberty process with these kids.
Oh my gosh.
My kid's plateaued and she's 7th grade and doesn't even weigh 100 pounds yet. And I'm over here and I have mental trainings all the time with a handful of my girls. I have some girls who are underdeveloped. They're diagnosed with that. They have IEPs for being underdeveloped physically and mentally. And a big thing that I'm saying, I mean, their mechanics though are really good. They've worked their butt off for these mechanics, but sometimes consistently they float, like they get off a little better. They don't see that speed. I have a girl in Pennsylvania. She's a little bitty girl. She's grown 4 inches since August, and she has her speeds increased, but now her mechanics are falling off. I'm like, hey, it's good because now like your ankles, they're a little bit unstable right now just because we hit that growth spurt, but now we just got to strengthen them up, get them stable a little bit more, and you'll be good. So it's just parents also sharing that with their kids of like, hey, we can't rush the puberty process. But once we get through that, then that's when the weight's going to be able to put on in the weight room a little bit. That's when you're going to see you getting stronger. But right now, we just got to work on the strengths that we do have and really kind of just, again, wait for Mother Nature and just keep working and keep grinding. But that's the biggest thing that I talk about most in mental trainings with girls 8th grade and younger is they feel this plateau. And for me as a coach, I see strengths in their body every week. Like I see things moving, but I can see what they're also talking about. But if they're not consistently working at home and they're going through this growing process, I mean, it's just, you're going to be going through waves because consistency is huge. And we also have to work on body rhythm. When your body is changing, we have to learn our new body a little bit. So if you're not constantly doing rhythmic things to keep your body flowing, you're going to have to relearn that each growth spurt, each time we hit that.
Yep. That is so true. I love it. I love it, girl. Well, you pretty much closed it out because I usually talk about like, you want to give a shout out to your mentors, your coaches, and you talked about your coaches by name, you talked about your parents. And they literally did exactly, they helped you navigate through life to get you where you're at right now. One question.
I'm just very thankful. I just want to give a shout out to 2 other people. Courtney Hudson and Saya Rivera, as far as mentors in this coaching world for me, like truly teaching me that there's more to pitching than just pitching. There's body movements, there's the why, it's the biomechanics. And until I learned that, like everything finally clicked for me. I had the pitching IQ, but it was the body IQ that I was missing a little bit for my own journey, and being able to set my stubbornness aside of me pitching 14 years one way and having to relearn everything. Like I'm seeing the growth in the game. And so I'm just very thankful for those 2. Courtney really just, I remember the day on Instagram hey girl, I see that you're so passionate about what you're doing. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about, again, internal rotation. And at first I was kind of like, but then I looked at her page and I'm like, dang, like her pictures are athletic, like they're moving. I don't look like that. And if she didn't do that, I don't think, eventually I hope someone would have done it, but she was that first person who was just like, hey, I love what you're doing, but there's another, you might be interested in this. And if I'm so thankful for that opportunity, because now I'm a nerd about the human body. All I want to know is learning about this, that, and another to help my girls and help myself.
No, I love Courtney. In fact, I think it was 2 Christmas breaks ago, she sat down with me and we talked.
Mm-hmm.
Gave up time during Christmas break and sat down and talked with me, and it was huge. And now she's doing her bodybuilding journey. And so I've been like, hey girl, I see you. I did that for 2-3 years. So I know exactly what you're going through. Like, let me know if you have any questions, you know? So it's been cool to watch her go on that journey. But Courtney definitely breaks it down in a very cut, dry, scientific way. And in fact, Courtney flat out told me, she's like, in the South, like, if you are not going to Carrie Foster, you're coming to me. And if you are not coming to me, you're going to Carrie Foster. Well, I think your name's going to start getting put in that pretty soon. If you're not going to Carrie, you're going to Courtney. If you're not going to either of them, you're going to Danielle. Like, I feel like you have, I don't want to say earned, paid the way, but you and I both know we have to compete. There is a level of competition with other coaches, but as we grow, it's a constructive competitiveness. It's all right. I love what this coach is doing. How can I bring what that coach is doing from the South to the Southwest and do it with respect? Like I'm always big on tagging coaches when I see a drill, like Jen Newman with Rugged Softball. She's came in on my Zoom calls with my athletes and talked to them. And the way she explains things like blew my mind. Like your core is like a shaken can of pop, she said. And when you come through, you want to explode, like you're opening that can of pop. And I was like, oh my gosh. So the more verbiage, the more understanding I can bring to this game, because as a teacher, that's one thing I do want to hit on here. She has 2 degrees, special education. Like, Danielle understands how to teach, not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom. Like, I know when this plays and people listen and they're going to go, oh my gosh, she just said 504 an IEP plan. Like, what? Now that person is now going to start listening to you, and you're going to give hope to that person, that parent, that athlete. Wait a minute. You mean I can actually learn a way that my brain can know how to do something and still be a part of the athletic world? Heck yeah.
I have about 20 girls with disabilities. They're all different, whether they're on the spectrum a little bit, like the autism spectrum, whether it's just ADD is really bad, or ADHD, growth development situations. So, I mean, I would love to talk to any parents if they're, and a lot of parents come to me of like, do you think my child has this? And I'll do a true, like a little evaluation kind of, to be truly honest, of like the level. It's not that they can't have it. It's just what level would be the level that I think that would put them in the most success, or to have the most success. But I'd love if anybody needed a little guidance, a little bit more as far as like the disability world and connecting that to the softball world. That's something I feel that in my heart, that I would love to connect with somebody who is deeper in that world as far as like athletics with disabilities. Cause like I need to be in that more. I want to do more things with that. I just feel it in my heart. And then just connecting. And also it's educating coaches. It's a big thing to me, is I want to put on some class, some seminar of educating coaches on how to work with kids with disabilities. I just made a post about that on IG. I have it on my blog post as well. And there's so many coaches, like with kids with ADD, that's a very common thing, whether you have a 504 plan with it, you're not diagnosed, or you have an IEP. I mean, there's so many different levels of having it. And I have it personally, so I can relate to it a lot. And I had a 504 plan in college for it, to help me stay focused and have longer times taking tests. And there's strategies. I mean, I had strategies on the mound. It was like my mask on, mask off. I put the mask on, I'm in the zone. I take it off, I can breathe for a second and think about whatever. But that was like a technique. Grabbing dirt, like when I like that was kind of like a trigger thing for me, is I would just rub dirt in my fingers instead of like just moving my body that I wouldn't think. Like I had to move a little bit all the time. So I had like little techniques, or I'd spin the ball. I'd always had a softball in my hand. So it's killing two birds with one stone. It's a technique for me, as well as increasing my spin rate. But educating coaches that how to work those shoes in their a little bit to not hold these kids back, instead of screaming at these girls for not paying attention. Like they might not be paying attention for an XYZ of reason. They were in school for 8 hours. They might not have ate enough. They might not have drank enough. They might not have slept enough, but that doesn't mean that they're not truly listening. Like it's just sometimes tougher. So like, how can we try to draw them back in a positive way that doesn't shut them down? Because you could easily, any girl, disability or not, like they will shut down if you attack them, especially if they're in that state of mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that's good, because I think for coaches that don't know how to do that, they almost fall into that mindset of, oh my gosh, I have to learn how to coach 13 different ways. And it's like, no, actually you don't.
Or this kid doesn't have it. They think that I don't have time. And that kills me. It breaks my heart when coaches say stuff like that, or I hear stories like that of like, time's the biggest enemy. I don't have time to work with her. Well, I get it. Like I get time's the biggest enemy of this game, but you committed to being a coach, of working with however many girls, whether you're an instructor, whether you're a coach of the team, like you made that commitment, and you need to go all in on that commitment. That's just what I believe in. Or you stepped into the wrong career. You stepped into the wrong world of volunteer work. Why are you volunteering your time if you're not willing to give everything you have to change the life for these kids, change their future? Like you're really you're helping form their future.
I agree 100%. So this is going to be the final question. I always like to leave with one final question, and it's always the same question. If there was one thing you could go back and tell your young athletic self, what would that be?
I got asked this the other day, to listen to my father. And I mean that not in a joking way. Like, yes, in a joke, but I'm being serious. And the reason why is I was competitive. I was a little stubborn as a kid. And my dad, he would be seeing like my daughter's plateauing at this speed for so long. And he would just be analyzing some of the other girls who are half my size throwing 10 times harder than me. And he'd just be looking and he's like, well, her toes pointed at the catcher, her hips are coming through, like you're completely sideways toe at third base. Like if I just listened to him a little bit and I was a little bit more open-minded, I had more of an open-minded mindset to learn from other people, other coaches, other instructors, I really think like that could have just changed my game a little bit. But I was very passionate about who I was working, and it didn't matter who I was working with or not. It's just if I was told something, I was going to do everything in my power to get that right. And it kind of just shut down everybody else. Like anybody else hearing things, like I never let anybody get in my head. Like, nope, what I'm doing, I have a reason for it. And if I just listened to him a little bit more on the physical side, I think my athletic career could have been just a little different as far as moving my body a little bit more. Something else though too, if I had to go back, I did just answer that question. I know there's more I can add to that. I would really take the time to appreciate the moments I had with my teammates a little bit more. And that's in a younger age. As far as when the game did not have as much pressure on it, but I might have made that pressure myself of being young and competitive, of like, I need to be the best. Like I went through that time period up until I reached that 8th grade year. So like before 8th grade, I was playing on teams where we were winning a lot. Like we were all decent, but we were all, again, local teams competing against local players, playing against the same people all the time. I wish yes, I had fun, but I wish I allowed myself to have a little bit more fun and not take it so serious at that age, just because the older I got, the more competitive I got, the more, yes, it became a job. Yes, it was a passion, but it was just a little tougher to go through that. So I wish younger Danielle did not put as much pressure on myself as I did.
You are speaking to my mom heart right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we took second, like in that tournament I told you about a couple weeks ago, and it was a heck of a championship game. And both teams, we emptied the tank that Sunday to get to that game. And I think there's one picture, and I'm pretty sure I told you this, where my daughter is like this and like she's barely smiling. Every other picture, she looks like somebody died. And I, as a coach, like I get it, but as her mom, I'm like, oh, like you need to lean into this. Like you guys empty the tank, like have fun, high five, don't be mad. So we get in the car and I ask her, and she's gonna kill me for even talking about this, but I want her to hear this loud and clear, especially with you on this. We get in the car and I'm like, baby girl, what is wrong? Like you played great. Your teammates played great. Everybody gave their best of what they had. What else could you want? And she goes, we didn't take first. We lost. And I'm like, oh, sweetheart. Like there's so much more than that. And she's always had that, Danielle. So I am definitely going to have her listen. If this is all she hears, I want her to hear it from you to have more fun.
I'd love, let's have a FaceTime. I'd love to talk with her. That's something for real. It's just to have more fun and enjoy the moment. Enjoy these times because, again, my career ended 4 years ago when I was 21. And I knew softball wouldn't last forever, but of course, my little girl heart always wanted it to last forever. And I'm thankful I'm still in this lifestyle and this career in a different role, different way. But it's just enjoy the moment, love it. Parents supporting your girls, and I know you support your girl, but and when that time happens of them feeling like second is bad, like I got to really think about kind of what a strategy could be for that. But it's really, again, it's second place, girl. I mean, you weren't last, but even if you were last, so what? I mean, how do we focus on getting that 1% better next time? But those small accomplishments, and I tell my girls too, they'll be like, well, I struck out 4 times this weekend. I'm like, okay, well, what else did you do? Well, I made a good play at third. I'm like, okay, hold on to that. You made a great play at third. Like, find the little accomplishments and don't think about the big accomplishments. It's not win and lose. It's how did you get better? How did you, whether you were more of a leader on the field, whether you didn't get upset at yourself for striking out, you held your head up high, you didn't throw your bat, or you didn't do some tendencies that you used to do. Like, those are the accomplishments that we need to praise more. And I know you do that with your girls. I know I do that with my girls, but it's changing that overall culture. Again, today's generation, I feel like egos can get a little high when it comes, parents get competitive sometimes, kids overhear these conversations and it sticks to them a little bit. Or like, just girls are being girls, we all talk and blah blah blah, we can get in our own girly mindset sometimes, and we have to fall back on, again, our why. What's our why? It's not to win every single game, but it's to be the best version of ourselves every single time we step on that field. And just be proud of those moments, because one day it's going to be gone and you're going to wish that you can go back to that, and you would lose that game. I would come in second place every single tournament for the rest of my life if I can go back and step foot and put my cleats back on. Like, feeling
that is the truth. I love that you would go back and take second over and over again if it was just to put your cleats back on. Like, that's huge. And I really want to encourage coaches, parents, athletes, family members, parental units. Like, if grandparents are raising their granddaughters, like, I want to encourage you guys to really listen to this. I think there's a lot of nuggets here. But Danielle, I appreciate you for your time today. I appreciate you for your heart, for your past, your present, and your future. I feel blessed that you're here and you're just sharing everything. So
well, thank you so much. I'm blessed we met. I'm so happy our paths crossed, and I will never forget. So yes, Coach Kally said she recognized me from my headband, but I recognized her. We were at the NFCA convention. There's a big long line from the bathroom, and I was done washing my hands, and I look and I'm like, I know. And I just gave her the biggest hug, and she gave me the biggest hug. And right then and there, I'm like, that's one of my softball sisters. Like, I felt it. And I knew I loved you from your social media, but being able to connect and have, I mean, I think we both skipped out on a seminar chit-chatting for an hour and a half, like, outside of it. But I'm so thankful for that opportunity, and I'm thankful to be here. I'd love to come on, chit-chat with you more, come up to Arizona and co-coach with you, put on a camp.
I know my girls would love to have you out here. When I told them that story of how you recognized me, I was like, it was like a full circle moment. Like, I remember being you, like being the young instructor. and constantly getting critiqued and looking for those people that were going to help you or help me. And now being on the other end of that, I'm like, all right, how can I help this baby girl like not have to go, like I want her to go through adversity, but how can I let her know I'm right here beside her going through that adversity?
See, that's what I love. I just felt that big sister feeling from the very beginning. Even through social media, I felt it. But the fact of just seeing you, and I'm like, ah, and I just got so excited to see you in our talks. I'm blessed that our paths we cross paths, and I'm excited for the future, whatever that holds.
I am so excited, and we got to get you out here to Arizona for sure. So,
Yes,
all right, Coach D. Well, thank you very much, girl. Appreciate
you. Everyone, thank you for having me. And yeah, check me out on social media. It's DR3 Fastpitch. And you can also check out my website, dr3fastpitch.com.
Love it. Bye, guys.